the second update that I saw in regards to this morning is the system requirement adjustments for version 4.0. They've actually made it so no more PlayStation 4, certain PCs and Android devices and Apple devices won't be able to access the game any longer. And I do think this actually plays a big, important role here, because a lot of people have been talking about for a while the lack of fidelity on some of the cutscenes with just plainly using the models, when if you compare this game to some of its counterparts, like Genshin, I can speak from a very personal place because I have been looking at Genshin, and recently their models are very expressive. Meanwhile, Zenless, apparently the models are more expressive there too, but I don't have as much knowledge of that. So people are wondering if the update to system requirements ties into that, because creating a new world wouldn't instantly result in system specifications being updated. It'd result in the amount of memory or space on the device needed would increase significantly, but that doesn't equal, oh, we need you to have higher hardware in order to run this game now. That kind of speaks to a more fundamental change in how the game runs, and that to me would suggest that it's either running more intensive code that requires more graphic components available. For example, if they were making models more expressive, making more things occur in cutscenes, if there's more going on in worlds that they want to be consistent throughout the entire game, which is why they can't allow low spec. It's a neat little food for thought, because depending on the result of this, we could end up with some nice variety of expressions and emotions displayed by the characters in story, and I think that it's a little overdue, considering Genshin's been doing it for quite a bit with its Nordcry update. And I think that, based on what I know, Zenless has been doing it through its entire life cycle. I do think that people have a fair point when they say that the expressive range of Honkai Star Rail's characters outside of animations and outside of trailers and things is very limited in the game itself. And I do think it would do a lot of work to add more variety in, because the visual experience is a big part of how people approach media. I think that Star Rail is a great, all in all, if we consider it a product or an experience, I think that it does a really good job, but I do think that there are definite improvements that could be made. I do think that this is going to hurt some players who maybe don't have a more up-to-date PC, especially considering, RAM's gone up in price due to AI, and certain PCs themselves have just become more expensive to purchase due to that issue. Memory is a big thing that people are caring about. And then there's, of course, the fact that some people skipped the PlayStation 5 due to, one, it not being very supported with games on launch, and two, its price point. And that's not going to improve either. And if a PlayStation 6 is on the way, like people keep talking about, then I think a lot of people are going to skip immediately jumping into that generation too. And considering the hardware differences, I don't even know if it'll be worth jumping into a PlayStation 6. It's like, technology right now is being massively hit on availability and cost due to AI. A lot of, for example, personal GPUs and RAM providers have changed their mind on the markets they address because it's not as profitable for them anymore. And I do think that that's going to hurt when games are made harder to access due to hardware upgrade requirements. We'll see how it pans out, because I've never looked into Honkai Star Rail statistics of the players of the sort of tech they use to play these games. But I guess we might actually potentially see some reactions to it long term. Maybe some people will no longer be able to play the game, or maybe they'll have to upgrade their tech in order to. Now, the specifications when it comes to phones, outside of obviously the recommended devices, because that's different. Recommendation is high-end. The supported is the minimum. And it's still pretty flexible, I would say. 8GB of RAM is still higher, though, than quite a few people I know have on their machines for personal devices. And not every single PC comes in with GPUs installed. Like, some people will instead game on their phones, and I don't know how I feel about some of the minimum specs for, like, Apple's always kind of expensive, so I don't know how I feel about the iOS device requirements, but the Android ones, like, a Snapdragon is a processor that's used in gaming phones, isn't it? Meaning that the expectation now is to have gaming phones in order to actually access the game. Unlike before, where you could actually install it on your kind of average Android phone. We'll see. Like, I don't know how old the Snapdragon 835 actually is, or an Adreno, because for me, when it comes to phones, gaming specs are not what I look at all. A phone to me is just a device that I can keep on hand to access necessities. But I'm curious what people who watch this will think about these spec requirements. Let me know in the comments if this impacts you and how, and if when it comes to the phones it's a fair expectation to have for playing a game. Just because for me that's not my area. For PC specs minimum, I do think quite a few people can meet that with just buying a PC, but I will say that quite a few models of like pre-built PCs now have changed the amount of RAM they can have on their available models unless they've massively upscaled price. So, yeah, we're kind of in a weird spot when it comes to preparing hardware for gaming as a whole, because as a side consequence of AI, everything else that PCs are used for has been hit. If you enjoyed this sort of video, I think you'd enjoy some of my others, so I'd appreciate if you looked through my other stuff, and I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed. Until next time, have a good night, morning, day, whatever time it is, wherever you guys are in the world, and take care of yourselves. Bye.